All right, everybody, let me know if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Let's see. If you can hear me, let me know. Well, I guess I'm going to start right now. Welcome to the anybody who's coming into the live stream. I don't see anybody in the chat or in the live stream right now. I think I'm see if I can share this. Let's see if anybody's in there. I don't see anyone in. Okay. I'm going to see if I can. Share this. I'm putting this on Twitter. I'm putting this on Twitter. And oh, it looks like I got a visitor. If you can hear me, let me know right now if you can hear me. If you can hear me, say yes in the chat. Whoever is watching, let me know if you can hear me. I guess I will begin. Right now in the United States of America, there is a coming cold blast coming out of Canada. It will be going in through the Midwestern United States of America and the Eastern US. And one of the things that is going to take place, temperatures are going to hit record lows for this time of year. One thing to understand is the month of March. We're in early March. March is technically when spring starts here in the northern hemisphere. And here in, you have astronomical spring and then you have meteorological spring. You know, you know, when you think about right now, we're in early March, and this is when things are starting to warm up a bit more. And now we're getting this cold blast that's supposed to come in through, you know, got this cold blast coming through the northern and eastern part of the United States of America right there. In fact, I will pull something up, get a more detailed map. Turn to my trusty Google Earth. You got the eastern United States. You got this here, and then you're getting this like cold blast coming through, barreling eastward and north towards the Midwestern and Eastern United States of America. Just to give you an idea, it's starting right around, just whoosh, you got this big cold blast coming through. And one of the things about this cold blast you must understand, you're going to get a lot of colder than normal temperatures. In fact, it's expected that a lot of cold weather records are going to break for this time of year because of the Arctic blast. And there are a lot of things that are going to be expected. You know, for starters, prices for electricity, prices for gas, all of that's going to go up. And there's a reason that you're going to have, oh, Geo, hello, Freelance Ronin. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Keep watching, share this. This is not going to be a long stream because it's almost midnight, not too far from midnight. I just want to get this in before the day ends. But one of the things about the cold weather, when you're having a situation where you have cold temperatures, obviously you're going to have, a requirement. More people are going to need to use energy. More people are going to need to use things like gas. More because, people need heat. People need to be able to survive in these colder temperatures. You're in a city like, I enjoy all the, thank you. Thank you. When you're in a place like Detroit or Chicago in the winter, you're going to need heat. You're going to need like the gas. You're going to need something to keep your home warm because you don't want to freeze to death. And now we're coming into the month of March. There's like a certain supply of gas. And you're coming into March, there isn't as much expectation that you're going to be using as much gas. It's going to be cold. It's still going to be cold in some places, but not not nearly as cold as the winter. But now you're going to have this big Arctic blast coming through. And one of the things it's been doing, one of the effects, energy prices are going to surge. They're starting to surge in expectation for requirements of energy. It's being predicted that some of the pipelines in Wyoming or in other places out west are going to get very overwhelmed because you got to send the gas, natural gas, and other resources somewhere through the pipeline. It is also one thing to consider, being the month of March, a lot of people are not expecting for temperatures to surge that far down. We're not talking about just days where the temperature doesn't make it out of 40 degrees Fahrenheit. We're talking about some really cold mornings We're talking about really cold mornings where it could get down to 0, and it's March. And a lot of people are not expecting that. So what's going to end up happening is more people are going to have to consume more energy, more natural gas, more heating oil, and the prices for all of that are going to surge because number one, the demand for it is going to go up because people are trying to prepare for that. And then you also have to understand it's that demand is going to cause sort of an overwhelming of supply. You have to think about supply and demand. You think about how geography and weather are going to play big roles in supply and demand right now, because what you're having is a situation where you're going to see unseasonably cold temperatures take place. And many people, in preparation for this, are preparing to use more energy resources because more heat is going to be required for your home. So, obviously, energy prices are going to surge in response because the demand's going to go up. And this could cause some issues with supply, especially when you have a cold blast, when you have unusually cold temperatures in March or in April, even. Now, it isn't just going to be the Midwest and the Northeast that are going to be affected. Places as far south as Atlanta and Nashville are going to see temperatures drop, as low as 20 degrees Fahrenheit at night. And when you have temperatures going that far low, when it gets that cold, and especially right now when we're all preparing for spring, because right now where I live in the Atlanta area, some of the trees have already bloomed and are starting to turn green. Not all the trees, but we're getting signs of spring. We've been getting signs of spring already in the month of February. So, and that's going to segue into another part of this that I want to talk about. It's going to segue into another part of this, but down here in the Atlanta area, it's going to get cold. We're going to have some cold nights. The high temperatures are going to be in the 40s, but at night it's going to drop into the 20s and probably below 20. It's probably going to hit like 19. One or two nights is supposed to hit like 19 degrees Fahrenheit, which is for that is considered unusually cold, period. For for Georgia, for the Atlanta area, a low temperature of 19 degrees is considered below normal. That is considered like more than 10 degrees below normal. So for that to happen in March is like it's not unheard of, but it is really, really unusual. It is really far below normal. Because around this time of year, we're supposed to get days where temperature is around 61 and the nighttime is around 40. So it's like spring is here. What's interesting is that it's been feeling like spring where I currently live. It's been feeling like, more and more like spring, really wet spring because we've gotten a high stretch of rain, but not really a whole lot of cold for like the past 2 weeks. But one of the things about, what it's going to do to some places, it's going to strain a lot of supplies as far as energy goes because, as it's straining energy resources, you know, the prices are going to go up because number one, places where, you know, at this time of the year, we're not even supposed to be using that much heat at all. And now we got to cut the heat on for a few nights or for a few days because we have to. We have to, and it's like, oh boy, we need that gas supply. I mentioned earlier that there have been some trees blooming in the Atlanta area, and especially the dogwood trees, some of the crab apple trees, some of the trees have been blooming. With this cold blast, there will be a problem because, and I think this is one thing a lot of farmers don't like. When it's winter, when it's winter and you have a long stretch of weather where there are no frosts, there are no temperatures dropping below freezing. It's literally like spring before it's spring. And for where I live in the Atlanta area, we don't really get very cold winters. We get mild winters, but when you have that really bizarre situation where it's kind of warm, where it's like kind of warm, mild, and then you get a big cold, and then you get a big cold blast come in. If that happens in spring, there's a problem because by the time March comes along, we should not be having these problems. But when you get into spring and all the stuff's been blooming, or in this case, we have early blooms, and then March comes and you get that whoosh, that blast of cold air, which happened back in March of 2017. We had that same issue. I remember we had a lot of days in February where it was just warm, and then we had that 1 week in March where it got really cold. Well, that's about to happen. And it's going to be really, you notice I mentioned crops. Well, when I saw all the trees blooming in February, I thought about, I wonder if peach farmers in Georgia and South Carolina, I wonder if some of the people who plant and farm peaches for a living, I wonder what they're going to be dealing with. Because if their peach orchards have bloomed early and this cold blast comes in, be prepared for the price of peaches to shoot up. Be prepared for the price. Be prepared for peaches to be a little more expensive because this has happened before. This has happened before where a bloom happens and then you have a cold blast because either A, it got unusually cold, or you had a period in January or February where it was warm enough the trees to bloom, and then it got cold again, and boom, some of the trees are destroyed. Some of the peach crops are destroyed. That is something to be very concerned about. When you really think about weather and, farmers pay very close attention to the weather. They have to. Their livelihoods depend on it. And this is why their livelihoods depend on it and you depend on it. You depend on it. You depend on it far more than you think. You know, if you like going to the supermarket and getting fresh fruits and vegetables, if you like making sure that you are able to buy fresh fruits and vegetables at reasonable prices, the weather depend the weather you depend on that. You depend on that weather. You know, if you have a situation where some place gets an early frost or they get a late season frost, that could cause a problem. Because if you live in an area where that particular crop doesn't grow and you're used to being able to get it, the price for that crop could go up because not only do you have to think about the logistics of getting that crop to your supermarket, You got to factor in gas, packing that stuff into trucks. You got to consider supply drops, but the demand doesn't. If your supply drops, but your demand still remains here, your prices are going to go up. And that's the thing about this cold blast right now. This cold blast, you have to really think about the money. One of the things, a lot of people think about weather. Money is not always something that's being thought about, but you should. You should think about it because right now we got a cold blast getting ready to barrel in through the eastern US, and it could get cold and it's going to get cold all the way down to places like Atlanta. We're much further south. And one thing to consider is that with some of the crops could have been blooming early. I don't know if you are a farmer. If you're a farmer, please let me know if your crops started blooming and growing early. Please let me know. If not, but what I'm trying to tell you is that stretch of spring-like weather or in this case, we had a lot of rain, but it's important to consider that when you have that spring-like weather for like 2 weeks, the trees are like, we can bloom now. And then you've got that cold blast that comes in, and a lot of trees are in danger of getting killed, or at least some of their blooms are in danger of getting killed off. With stuff like peaches and other crops, that could kill them. And that could cause a problem for the farmer. It could cause a problem for you. Farmer loses crops, loses money. The supermarket doesn't have as much of that crop. You can't buy as much of that crop, and whatever is available is going to cost a lot of money. Another example is when a cold blast went through Florida and killed some orange crops back in the 1980s. A sizable amount of Florida's economy depends on oranges. And if the orange crops have some problems, if there's some damage to it, or you have killing frosts, and for a citrus trees, particularly the oranges, cannot handle that cold weather like that. You get an unusually cold week, you get unusually cold weather. Something that was not expected. You get like a blast of cold weather that reaches all the way down to Florida, and it's not expected. That could cause some problems for the orange crops. That's always a concern. And it has happened before. But you have to think about what that does. It causes the prices for oranges to go up. And that's a big problem. But this is what you should take away from this stream. You should take away how you have really unusual weather conditions and how they can, how they affect human life. And right now, one of the ways it's going to affect human life, you're going to have supply of energy being challenged. There'll be energy, and people will be, there will be energy being delivered. The price for it will be higher because the demand is going up because in the response to the weather or the upcoming weather. And then you have to think about crops being grown. You have to think about what the cold blast could do to crops, especially if there's been a stretch of warmer than average weather, or if it's just spring like weather and then you have a blast of cold air and it kills some of the crops. You got to think about that as well. I would like to shout out all of my Patreons: Freelance Ronin, Scott O'Neill, Atlas Schmatlis. I'd like to thank all of you for contributing pledges to the Patreon. And if you would like to become a Patreon, the link will be in the description box and some of my other videos. In my other videos, the link to my Patreon is in the description box. So and you can also find the link to my Patreon on my YouTube channel. Thank you for watching. Be sure to hit that like button. I see one person has. And be sure to subscribe to this channel. And that is the end of my stream.